Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. We're testing out the DJI Osmo Action 5 Pro camera today. That's what I'm filming off of right now. We're gonna test it out in several modes. We're gonna do some low light in the sun right now. As you can see, we're in full sunlight. We're also gonna try that super night mode. We'll wait till it gets kind of dark, do that. It also has that tracking mode that kind of keeps you in view. Right now, I'm just shooting in 4K 30. Horizontal balancing. I like this balancing where you can tilt the camera. I'm tilting it left and right, and it's keeping the horizon level. So anyway, stay tuned. We're gonna put this thing through the paces, put it on a bike as well, see how the stabilization is, ride through some of these trails, get in some shade and sun. The Pro's supposed to be able to handle the low light a lot better. So let's see how it performs. Okay guys, first thing I want to test is kind of how it deals with shade and light. So I'm just kind of around my house going in some shade here under the trees, and I want to see how it deals with this. And it did brighten pretty quickly when I kind of turned it to the shade, so that's good to know. It seems like it is handling a bit better than the Action 4, which if you guys did missed that review, I actually took it on a motorbike and I was going all through the mountains with it. Go ahead and check the description down below if you want to see that Action 4 review and see how it is different. And I'm also doing a GoPro Hero Black 13 comparison. That'll also be down in the description when that's ready. But let's just see how it kind of transitions from shade to light and how it deals with the sunlight. Looks like it's dealing a little bit better than the Action 4. Just kind of walking around here. Remember, we're in horizontal stabilization balance mode. And let's see how it deals with these sand toy colors. Taika, you want to play with your sand toys for a minute? Empty out that bucket. It's got water in it. Empty it. Oh my gosh, don't touch that. There's a dead mouse in there. Ooh, don't get anywhere near that, buddy. You'll get sick. Did you see that? What was it? A mousey in your sand bucket? So I think that's pretty good for at least a walking speed, light and dark transitioning. Really bright right here. Immediately into dark, you can see how that brightens up really quick. And it seems like it's a reasonable brightness. And then of course, when we go to bright, we want to check for washing out, right? See if it's washing the scene out at all, getting too bright, and then going back. Cameras have quite the difficulty if you're in the sun, brightening up the background if you're not in the shade yet, but you're looking at shade. But when we go in the shade, it definitely is brightening this up. So that looks pretty good to me. Anyway, you guys be the judge. Again, 4K, 30 frames per second in horizontal balancing mode. Let's transition right in here into the shade and see how it deals with this. Yeah. Anyway, let's put it through some more tests, get some bike riding in, do some tracking and all that other stuff.
Whoa.
All right guys, so we want to do a subject tracking test. Say you're behind or in front of somebody and you're riding with them. I thought this would be a great idea to kind of get my son on a scooter, Kian. We're going to go in the trails over here and he's going to ride in front of me. And I'm just going to basically be looking forward and we're going to see how it kind of keeps him in center frame. And then I'm going to flip the hat backwards and he's going to go behind me and we're going to see how that works also. I thought that'd be kind of cool to test out just so you get an idea of the different uses you can try with this new feature, which is object tracking on this camera. So I'm not really gonna be trying to keep him in center. I'm just gonna kind of be looking in his direction. And I'm hoping that this will kind of keep him in center, even if my head kind of varies from, you know, being right in his direction. He has the good scooter with all the suspension. I don't have any suspension, so this will also be a good kind of bounce test to see how this camera deals with tracking in kind of bumpy situations. Hopefully it's retracking. This will be a good example of how it kind of deals with if you lose a subject and then point in their direction and retrack, how it goes. And of course, I've got this camera on my hat, and it's a little bouncier on a hat. So you are gonna see some weird bouncy stuff going on. But let's just see how it handles it. That's how being in the rear tracks. Let's switch it up now, Kian. Let's switch it up where I'm gonna go in the front of you. I'm gonna flip my hat backwards. And let's see how that works. All right, cool. So I got him. I'm just looking at the camera, guys, the actual camera screen, and I do see the reticles on him. All right, just try to keep up like 10 to 15 feet behind me. All right, let's see how this works, guys. Hat on backwards. This could also be useful maybe if you're on a bike and you have it attached to the back of your seat pointing backwards and you really want to get that cool shot. That might be kind of neat. Again, I'm not doing anything special with my head except keeping it sort of level in the direction I think he is. We'll just come around a couple more corners here and see how this works. Still behind me, Ken? I don't think he heard me. He has that helmet on. Going through some rocky sections. I'm trying to duck and weave, not really paying attention where my head's at. And we're just gonna see how centered. Remember, we're looking for him being centered in the frame while I ride. That's real rocky right there. Heard Kian bottom out. Anyway, good example of how it tracks off of the head. You all right? Yeah, it's some gnarly little bumps there, huh, for scooters like this. Okay, guys, so at our turnaround spot, I noticed that the green reticles were not on him even anymore and retracking. So hopefully I just restarted the camera. Let's go for it, Kian. Just take your time. Don't need to go fast if you don't want to. This would be a great new feature for action cams if this actually ends up working, you know, and keeping the subject in center. I could see people really using this for bike riding, motorcycle riding, all that stuff, just to get like a, you know, another edge on keeping that camera stable. But if you lose the subject and it doesn't retract, that could be a problem. And we'll also see how the tracking does in the shade too. Oh.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, guys.
You bet. We'll just give it a lengthy little run here, guys, so you know we know how that. I'm a little bit worried about that retract deal where it does that and loses the subject and won't retract, so we'll see how that is in the video. It's always good to give it a little lengthy test whenever you're doing stuff like this, because you know you're riding with your buddies. You're out there thinking it's tracking subjects when if it doesn't, then what's the use, right? Woo! Sure is a blast though when you're on a non-rocky, non-rooty terrain. All right, guys, I'm gonna turn off the tracking and I'm just gonna give you an example of how it is without tracking, okay? let's start another clip. Now the subject tracking, remember, can only do 2.7K. This is now in standard mode. We're in 4K, 30 frames per second, and we're in horizontal balancing mode. So here's the difference. Let's go for it, Ken. Here is the difference between subject tracking on back there and then now non-subject tracking. Go ahead and go left down the driveway, Ken. So I'm just kind of doing the same thing with my head as I was with the subject tracking. So just kind of do swerving around really hard left and right. I'm gonna keep my head perfectly straight. All right, so you're with your buddies, you're doing stuff. You want that camera to track. Remember, this is with it off. Okay, hold up, Ken. All right, guys, now I'm gonna put subject tracking on. Next clip. Okay, guys, subject tracking on. Let's do that again. Go for it, Ken. Do that hardcore swerving. Again, I'm just keeping my head perfectly straight, guys. And this will give you a great idea. Again, riding with buddies and subject tracking. Still, my head is still perfectly straight. I haven't turned to look at him at all. And this is how it's working. A few more. This would be a good use case as well. If you can really get a stable side track, if you're riding with somebody and you don't have to turn your head all the way. Right now I have my head turned about 3/4 of the way. It's kind of like pointing in the front a little so I can see where I'm going. Like maybe a 45-degree angle, you know what I'm talking about? And let's see if it can actually keep him in the center frame doing that. If I kind of move my head to the right and then move it straight a little bit. This will be a great scenario. Woo! Nice. Is it still tracking him? Yeah, it should be. That's awesome. Thanks for the help. That was awesome. Appreciate it. I want to do a little bit of lower light footage and also maybe a little bit of quicker, speedy footage in this sort of light. The sun has just set. See how the low light is just on this regular mode, which I'm in right now. And then we'll switch it to super night and we'll see if that makes any difference. All right, so we're gonna go directly into the sun on sunset. And I'm just gonna kind of go fast and let's just see how it deals with the motion. Just gonna maybe look left and right a few times. Looking right. All right. So this will give us a good idea how, at least in regular mode, how it's dealing with this. Back down to 30. Back up to 40. Let's turn around and we're gonna have the sunset to our backs a little. We'll go back home and see if we have any difference at speed. Going about 25. Do a little rocking. Doing about 30. Cool. Well, I'm gonna hang out till the sun goes down and we'll get some kind of super night shots. I think you guys got kind of the gist of how it performs in standard. This is 4K, 30 frames per second, horizontal balancing mode. All right, guys, let's continue on in the dark of the night with a low light night test. Right now we're in standard 4K 30 horizontal balance mode. This was the same mode that we did the kind of evening sunset test in, and then I'm going to switch to super night and we're going to see if we can see any difference. Okay, so let's just take a ride down the driveway. I've got some lights on the house so we can kind of see how lights look with this just standard mode. Let's go ahead and turn on the headlights on the bike here. Let's see. All right, so this is how it's looking. I'll go ahead and turn off the headlights and just drive down the driveway and see how the marker lights look. And let's just drive over here to the front of the house and just get a good idea of how this is looking in low light. Just the lights on in the house and how everything kind of brightens up. There's the patio with the string lights. And I'm going to do the same test with the super night. So I'd like to get a comparison. Okay, let's turn on the headlight. There we go. We're riding a bike. This is how it's going to look. Turn our brakes on. There's the controls there on the bike. And yeah, I definitely think, I mean, you can still kind of see the remnants of the sunset out there, but I think we are officially nighttime. One more thing before I switch to super night. I want to walk over here and I want to get this guy on camera. Just want to see how he looks in normal mode before we switch to super night. Well, I'm just looking at the Action 5 screen. It doesn't look half bad for normal mode. It looks actually pretty good. So I'm going to stop it here, switch to super night, and we'll continue on this exact same path. Okay guys, we are officially in super night. I went ahead and set it to 4K 30. The highest you can go in this mode, you can't do horizontal balancing. The highest you can go is Rocksteady Plus. I guess is the most buffered mode until horizontal balancing, but so you're going to get that side to side in this one. But as of now, there is no horizontal balancing in super night. Just want to get this guy before we go and do the rest of our route. And that looks pretty good, actually. Taking a look at the home lights. Anyway, let's do the same route. I think I turned the lights on here for a second. and then turn them off just to see the marker lights on the driveway. Just want to make it as equivalent as possible. Let's go around here where we did. Coming around, took a look at the lit house, at least the inside lights, and then just these patio string lights here. All right, so same route, same night route anyway as we did. All right, here we are. Those are the standard lights, brights, and then turning lights off so we can kind of see that sunset remnants. There were the controls on the bike. See any difference there? And let's just kind of head back up. I would assume there would be. I mean, why would you call it super night if there was no difference? Anyways, that's how super night is. So here's what I'm gonna do. Super night, I'm gonna do a movement left to right, just to kind of see the blur factor maybe of what's going on here. All right, just moving around. Okay, now I'm going to switch to standard mode and we're gonna do the same thing. Okay guys, standard 4K 30 horizontal balancing mode that we were in before the super night. And here we go, same deal. Just kind of moving left to right. Just looking for artifacting, maybe a blur, weird light transition effects. I definitely think the super night was more pronounced and less blurry just by looking at the camera here, but I'm not seeing the final product on the video yet. So anyway, that's standard mode compared to super night.